The workshop reeked of burnt coolant and desperation. Marcus wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag that had long since given up being clean, surveying the cluttered space that barely qualified as a repair shop anymore. 3 months behind on rent, equipment held together by prayers and improvisation, and exactly 0 customers this week. The outer rim stations were dying, and his business was dying with them. The airlock chimed. Marcus looked up, surprised. Nobody came to Depot 7 anymore, not since the corporate shipping lanes had shifted. Through the scratched viewport, he saw a vessel that made his mechanic's heart skip. Sleek, elegant, clearly expensive, and listing badly to one side with plasma scoring across its hull. The woman who emerged wore a hooded environmental suit that concealed most of her features, but Marcus caught a glimpse of crystalline blue skin and eyes that held galaxies. A Vexari, if he wasn't mistaken, rare this far out. You repair ships? Her voice carried a melodic quality that translator implants could never quite capture. That's what the sign says, Marcus replied, eyeing the damaged craft. Though I gotta be honest, ma'am, that's way above my pay grade. You need a corporate facility with... No. The firmness in her tone stopped him cold. No corporate facilities. No questions. Can you fix it or not? Marcus approached the ship, his trained eye cataloging the damage. Micrometeoroid impacts, energy weapon scarring, and a thruster assembly that had clearly been pushed far beyond safe limits. Whoever she was running from had meant business. I can fix it, he said finally. But parts for a ship like this? I'll have to improvise. It won't be pretty. I don't need pretty. I need functional. She paused, studying him with those unsettling eyes. You're human. Last time I checked. Marcus pulled out his diagnostic scanner, a battered unit he'd rebuilt 3 times. That a problem? On the contrary. Something that might have been amusement flickered across her partially obscured features. Humans have a reputation. They make things work that shouldn't work. They survive where others perish. They're stubborn. We prefer persistent, Marcus muttered, running the scanner across her hull. The readouts made him wince. The plasma conduits were fractured, the navigation array was completely fried, and the hyperdrive had stress fractures that should have torn the ship apart mid-jump. How are you even alive? This ship should have disintegrated. I had motivation to survive. Over the next 72 hours, Marcus barely slept. The Vexari woman, she'd given her name as Lysa, though he suspected it was false, watched him work with an intensity that should have been unnerving. Instead, he found himself explaining his process, showing her the human approach to engineering. See, Vexani technology is beautiful, he said, jury-rigging a plasma relay using parts from his own failing workshop generator. Efficient, elegant, built to exact specifications. But that's also its weakness. Everything has to be perfect or it fails. Human tech, we build for chaos. We assume things will break and we'll have to fix them with whatever's on hand. Controlled improvisation, Lisa observed. Barely controlled. Marcus grinned, welding a bracket that had no business working but somehow did. We had this saying back in Earth's industrial age. If it's stupid but it works, it ain't stupid. He showed her how to bypass 3 separate safety protocols to route power through secondary systems. How to convince a navigation computer to accept input it wasn't designed for. How to make a thruster assembly function at 80% capacity using duct tape, actual duct tape, and determination. Your species does this routinely? Lysa asked, watching him recalibrate the hyperdrive using a manual process that should have required a supercomputer. We do what we have to. Marcus tightened the final connection. My grandfather used to repair spacecraft during the colony wars. He once kept a frigate flying for 6 months using nothing but spare parts and spite. Humans don't give up easy. On the 3rd day, as the final systems came online, Lysa removed her hood. Her crystalline features caught the workshop's dim lighting, refracting it into subtle rainbows. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but it was her eyes that held him. Ancient, weighing, assessing. You've done the impossible, she said quietly. The ship was dead. You resurrected it. Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Just doing my job. About payment, though. I have nothing with me, Lisa interrupted. I fled with only this ship in my life. But I promise you, Marcus of Earth, you will be compensated beyond your imagination. He wanted to protest, but something in her tone made him believe her. All right, just stay safe out there. Whoever you're running from seemed pretty determined. A smile ghosted across her features. I'm done running. Thanks to you, I can go home. She left that night, her ship humming with power that shouldn't exist given what he'd done to it. Marcus watched her disappear into the star field, then returned to his workshop and the bills that wouldn't pay themselves. 3 weeks later, a fleet arrived. Not just any fleet, a formation of warships that made military admirals weep, surrounding Depot 7 like a protective embrace. The lead vessel docked and dignitaries in elaborate robes emerged, speaking in rapid Vexani about Her Imperial Majesty's savior and debt of honor. Marcus stood in his greasy coveralls, wrench still in hand as they explained that Lysa was the empress of the Vexani conglomerate, fleeing from a coup attempt when her ship had failed. That the impossible repairs he'd made had allowed her to return and reclaim her throne. That humanity's reputation for stubborn survival had quite literally saved an empire. The reward was substantial, enough to buy 1,000 workshops. But what Marcus would treasure most was the handwritten note delivered with it, in careful human script. You gave me hope when systems failed. You taught me that sometimes survival isn't about elegant solutions, it's about refusing to quit. Very human, very extraordinary. The Empire thanks you. I thank you. Marcus looked out at the stars, at the fleet that had transformed Depot 7 from a dying outpost to the most secure location in the sector overnight, and laughed. Just another day of human engineering, making the impossible work, one improvised solution at a time. The galaxy would learn what humans had always known. Sometimes the best technology wasn't the most advanced. Sometimes it was just the most stubborn.